Philosophy Now!
Cuando los Juegos se celebraron en Londres en 1908.
After 6 years of war and 3 years of rebuilding, London hosted the Summer Olympics of 1948.
For the third time in history, London is playing host to the Olympics. The city has surrendered itself to sports venues, athletes, supporters and tourists. The BBC is calling it one amazing summer. One that, ironically, is tied up not so much with the usual idea of summer, of being outdoors, playing sports and so on, but more to do with being indoors, watching television coverage of other people doing these things.
The trouble with the Olympics in London 2012 or anywhere is it's a travelling circus. It's a media circus, it's a sports circus, it's full of celebrities. We've got tens of thousands of people coming upon London for a couple of weeks, and it's inherently unsustainable. We've got massive carbon footprint associated with it, we've got traffic jams, and what we're getting away from is the Olympic ideal.
With the budget blown up from an estimated £2.4 billion to £9.2 billion, the question on most Londoners' minds is, what's the point? Leave it to philosophy now to turn a sports event into a moral issue.
As it turns out, there's something to learn from everything, sports too. One of the regular contributors to our magazine, Tim Delaney, argues that sport can be like a miniature society with a similar power structure. Think of the hierarchy in sports and the rankings of the players. These are the markers that make for social position. The trainer, the sports fan, and the athlete, all of them have a role to play in sports society. They're subject to laws and their reinforcement, a system of punishment that has not been able to eliminate racism, sexism, drug abuse, corruption and violence. Watching sport is not necessarily a waste of time, Tim Delaney says. It is more than idle entertainment. It provides us with a clear model to observe society. Take, for example, cheating. Cheating is common in all types of sport. Players trip one another, fake injuries, or enhance their performance with drugs. All these to ensure their victory. As long as winning is the end of all sport, Delaney says, victory will be used to justify wrongdoings. The same accounts for society at large. As long as we value our victory, for example, economic growth, as the most important, we will use it to justify global warming, the banking crisis, world hunger, pollution and more.
And they're on their way, approaching the first of those 10 hurdles that are 36 inches high. And James Carter attacking.
While many people are asking whether the expenditure of money on the Games can be justified in times of economic crisis, Kenneth Schuler asks an even less comforting question. Can we justify spending all the amount of time watching sports? It seems a trivial hobby, not important enough to take up such a chunk of our lives. Why would one even want to spend all those hours in the stadium or in front of the telly? And most of the supporters see sports players as extensions of themselves. They cheer when their team wins, and so get a sense of achievement out of rooting for somebody else.
Jamaica and the two Americans, Carter.
The support of a team also gives the sports fans a sense of belonging, like being part of a community. On top of all this, Schuler believes sports can fulfill a spiritual need in the modern fan. With church attendances dwindling and neighbourhood spirit almost absent, a certain sports team can take up the role of prophets, and the fan can dedicate himself to them with secular devotion.
The author David Foster Wallace famously remarks in his speech that there is no such thing as atheism. Everybody worships. The only choice you get is what to worship. He goes on to say that whatever you worship will eat you alive, thereby condemning the worship of money and fame. And he promotes the worship of virtues such as patience, kindness and discipline. Not values you directly associate with sports, but when you think about it, moral awareness matters a great deal in any sports game. Emrys Westacott, in a recent issue of Philosophy Now, focuses on cheating as a moral decision. You can either adhere to the rules or try to work your way around them. He illustrates these two perspectives by looking at two mythical heroes. On the one hand, we have Homer's Ulysses, who uses his cunning and tricky ways to get out of sticky spots. He is the cheater, the one who values the end, i.e. winning, over the means, cheating. On the other hand, we have Galahad, the purest of King Arthur's knights. To him, cheating is never excusable. Virtue and codes of conduct serve the highest purpose. Which one to choose then? Westercott believes that there is no inherently right or wrong choice. The best choice is founded upon our worldview, the world we'd like to see. Which would we prefer? A world in which sports are played in a Ulyssian fashion, where one tries to outsmart the rule maker, or a world in which Galahadian attitudes prevail in the form of good sportsmanship. This perspective is pragmatist. It holds that moral positions should be adopted or rejected according to how well they further our purposes. It also assumes that our expressions of approval or disapproval may help to nudge a sport into a certain direction. And perhaps it can also improve the ethos of other sports and the culture at large in order to get where we want to be.
This resonates with the Kantian ideal of morality. Immanuel Kant thought of human beings as rational beings, at least as beings with the ability to be rational. And that ability to be rational is what makes us moral. He also thought in order to be moral, we had to respect other human beings as beings with their own projects, and we couldn't just use them as means to our own ends. We have to respect they have ends too. Immanuel Kant is a Galahadian. He thinks of human beings as moral beings who draw strength from the adherence to moral laws. The Ulyssian, on the other hand, would think of moral laws as a limitation to their own desires and therefore the things that they can do. True sportsmanship comes from a desire to do right, not just to want to look virtuous, to want to be seen to be doing the right thing, but to actually do it. There's a difference between the person who performs good sportsmanship just for the camera and the person who really does the right thing by all players involved.
An outstanding display of sportsmanship. With time running out and the game poised at 1-1, Di Canio caught the ball, insisting that injured keeper Paul Gerrard be treated, an act that brought a standing ovation from the Goodison Park crowd and demonstrated further Di Canio's flair for the unconventional.
Good sportsmanship follows from the awareness of one's surrounding, of other people having their own desires, their own feelings, their own ends, and from a respect that comes from this. So being a good sportsman has to do with the Kantian ideal of respecting other players as human beings, and the Galahadian idea of playing the game as it's meant to be played. And perhaps this Galahadian, this Kantian ideal is the true Olympic ideal.
And what is that Olympic ideal? I would suggest it's about sport for everybody. This is not about sport for everybody. This is not about competing for the sake of playing. This is about competing for the sake of winning at all costs. And sport has never been about winning at all costs. It's been about playing for playing's sake and having that community spirit together. And what's going to happen to all these assets afterwards? People are actually busting a gut to be able to afford this. What we should be actually investing in is sport for the people in London and everywhere around the country and across nation states as well. This would be a better Olympics.
As it turns out, if you intend to spend your summer in front of the telly, you won't necessarily be wasting your time.
If you watch the games, not with a focus on victory and entertainment, but with an eye for ethics and politics, you might actually learn something about the society we live in.
Is it a lot of money to pay for a sports event?
Probably.
Will the Olympics disrupt London's system?
Likely.
But there is something to be gained here as well.
And we're not just talking about medals.